This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Oh my God, it's the coolest thing ever. Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? Well, check this out. It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic famous foods from restaurants across the country anywhere nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. Seriously. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. And today I've got a really interesting guest. If you are interested in financial crimes, financial investigation, white-collar crime, fraud, I've got Kelly Todd here from Alabama, and she is the fraud sentinel and your advocate in awareness. I'm really happy to have her on. So, Kelly, welcome.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Briefly introduce yourself, and I'm excited to delve into the questions and hear more about what you do.
All right. So I am the president of a small niche forensic accounting practice called Forensic Strategic Solutions. And I've been basically chasing the white collar criminal for the last 30 years. And in my role, one of the things that's happened over the 30 years is I've kind of worked myself out of a job. I'm typically, over the years have been the person that you call when you think that you've had some kind of financial wrongdoing, whether it's in a corporation, whether it's some kind of personal financial crime, that type of thing. But, I've stepped back as I've worked myself out of work, and raised others to do the work, within the firm. I've stepped back and asked myself the question, am I making the biggest impact that I can make in my career? And the answer is no. One financial crime at a time is not going to stop financial betrayal. And so I've really set out on a mission in the last couple of years to raise awareness for business owners, for entrepreneurs, for individuals who really don't realize the impact, number one, of financial betrayal or fraud, or they they're just not aware of their vulnerability. And so I'm here to help really help them be aware and protect what they have built.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the we'll dive into the questions, and first thing is talking about is just the psychology, and what I find really interesting is how the audience can spot or kind of prevent. And so what motivates seemingly honest people to commit white collar crime?
Well, the thing is that most people don't set out to commit a crime or to commit fraud. It really comes down to a couple of different things. Number one is some type of desperation, some type of need that they can't share. And that, then it turns into, there's an opportunity. And what I'm describing is what we commonly refer to as the fraud triangle. So the first thing is the need or greed or something of that nature. Mm-hmm. And then there's the opportunity. And then the last thing in the fraud triangle is the rationalization. It comes down to the, I deserve more money. Everybody else is committing fraud, management's, they claim they're ethical, but they're not. And I want more money. And it's the rationalization is the thing that perpetuates the wrongdoing. But at the end of the day, people generally don't set out to commit fraud.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And, we've heard all the, there's the Enron, WorldCom, the 2008 financial crisis. That was a fraud on tremendous scale. We've got, now we have the Department of Government Efficiency cracking down on Medicare. You got Bernie Madoff. All these. Are there common psychological traits among fraudsters?
Yeah, I mean, there really is. There is just this. They're masters at deception. They, it's an inherent need to manipulate, manipulate trust. That type of thing. But you see that kind of activity or that kind of thinking, really across the board with fraudsters.
Interesting. Yeah. And I know, certain traits, narcissistic personality, antisocial, these time. What are common red flags in fraud detection, and what are some of the most overlooked warning signs that indicate financial fraud in businesses, nonprofits, or personal finances?
Well, the common red flags come in a couple of different forms. The first is really behavioral. The person who's committing the fraud, behaviors that they exhibit. And then there's the red flags of the manifestation of their activity. So those would be financial kinds of red flags. But the really focusing on the behavioral, it starts out with the person that's living beyond their means. We often say when we go to conduct an investigation, we start in the parking lot. What kind of cars are we seeing? What, are they living in a lifestyle, beyond what they can truly afford? If they're driving a really nice car and they're making $50,000 a year, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, it's that type of thing. It's very basic. But then they're, if they've got some type of financial difficulty, and I mean, we all go through those types of things, but again, is it unusual compared, to normal behavior, for example? Feeling very defensive, or if to a business owner, your employee appears to be very defensive, wants to, doesn't take vacation, doesn't take time off. They're the first person in and the last person to leave. And I know that sounds kind of funny, because most business owners think, oh, that's great. I've got somebody here who is just so dedicated. Well, at the heart of financial misconduct is the ability to hide the activity. And so it can often be hidden by ways of, just hoarding the work, staying early, coming in early, staying late, not taking vacation, that type of thing. But the reality is that most fraudsters exhibit behaviors that are indicative of their deception. And unfortunately, most business owners either ignore them or they really don't understand what they are.
Interesting. So what are some effective steps individuals and businesses can take to proactively prevent financial fraud?
Well, one of the things is to understand, and when I said earlier that raising awareness, that my goal is to raise awareness. A lot of times people will automatically think about prevention and preventing the fraud. But the reality is there's something before prevention, and that is awareness. And that awareness starts with the owner of the business, with the leadership at the top, or if it's a personal financial matter, it is understanding that, number one, you're vulnerable, your business is vulnerable, and knowing where those vulnerabilities exist. I mean, I see it so many times that that business owners or any person in general will think, oh, I know they can happen, but that's not going to happen to me. I'm smarter than that, or I've got these, prevention methods in place. But it's about the mindset and understanding that it can happen to you. And then, from that awareness perspective, then providing oversight, because too many people rely too much on trust. And if you think about it, step back and think about the fact that Trust is not a control, okay? Oversight is the control. So one of the things that you can do is put oversight in place. I see it far too often that businesses, place too much trust in one individual without any oversight. You don't ever want to leave somebody in a position to check their own work. If you think about a transaction like a circle, you want to inject somebody, if you're a small business, inject yourself into the process so that one person cannot complete that circle all on their own. So those types of things. Oh, I've lost you.
BTW FYI. Visit Nexplanon.com RN to learn about Nexplanon. It's an gestural implant, 68 milligrams radiopaque. Or ask your HCP IRL. Okay, TTYL.
Build a routine with Ollie that supports your wellness needs, like getting your daily vitamins and minerals with Ollie's multi-gummies, or keeping your mood upbeat with all the vitamin D in Hello Happy. Give your gut health some support with probiotics, and wake up feeling refreshed after taking Ollie Sleep. Do wellness on your terms. Find Ollie at a Walmart or Target near you or at ollie.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Yeah, sorry. The lawnmower outside is making a lot of noise, so I had to mute my, this is COVID times. But yeah, interesting. So kind of a lot of what groups are especially prone to financial exploitations, and how can families protect themselves and their loved ones from financial abuse and scams?
When you ask what kind of groups, one of the things that I see a lot of is, especially in professional services, I mean, everyone is prone, okay? All businesses are prone. You're not going to escape it. But I see a lot of professional services businesses, doctors' offices, law firms, accounting firms, places where the leaders are experts in their field. Okay. They're not experts at business. They didn't go to law school to learn business. They didn't go to med school to learn business. And suddenly they find themselves at the helm of an organization where there is a lot of money, and they place entirely too much trust in one person. So that, that's when it becomes, a business becomes most prone. But then individuals as well, it's a similar thing. Think about elder care and, hiring somebody to take care of your aging mother. Oftentimes there again, we have one person who may have access to all of the financial information, where all the cash coming in and the cash going out. So the key for anyone, whether it's a business or a person, is to, again, not place too much trust in one person, to provide oversight. And there's different ways that you can do that, whether you're an individual or a business. But at the end of the day, just never leave one person in charge. And the other thing is, make certain that you go back and look at financial records, look at your bank statements. One of the things that I often recommend to very small businesses who say, well, wait a minute, I have one bookkeeper. Or you think about that doctor's office that has one bookkeeper. Who else am I going to put in charge of, to look over or to approve financial transactions? Well, you can inject yourself into the scenario. For example, have the bank statement delivered to your house. That's very basic. However, make certain that you open the envelope and look at the bank statement and look at the transactions. Do they look odd? And do that on a regular basis. So many people just set it and forget it. Leave that one person in charge and never look over their shoulder. And oversight is not about micromanaging somebody. It's about accountability. And if you create the right culture around oversight, your employees or the people that you've hired to take care of your aging mother or look over your financial investments or what have you, they're not going to see that as a negative. They will see it as a positive. You approach it in the right way.
Yeah. Because it reminds me of one of my friends. He heads a public company, and there's actually a in order for certain transactions or certain amounts, it has to go through a 3-level approval process, and not one person has control of everything, and kind of divide it up. I think there was recently a story. I think it was Bed Bath and Beyond. The CFO committed suicide because he was caught with the embezzlement or, just all these outrageous cases of greed and corruption. What about what about seniors? Because I know, I get all these really texts and these scam calls. How can families protect? And then now I heard like can be like AI can clone a voice that sounds like your loved one. And, how can people protect from these types of new financial abuse and scams?
Yeah, the thing you have to do is, and it becomes, especially with AI, it's becoming easier and easier to manipulate somebody, to deceive somebody. So the very first thing is, I hate to say this, but be skeptical. When somebody calls you on the phone and asks you, especially if it's a loved one, if it's the voice of a loved one, have a code word, have something that, maybe that you ask them a question, and the person that's with the that has cloned the voice isn't going to know the answer to the question. And if they don't know the code word or the answer to the question, you're going to know that it's going to be a pretty good indicator that you're not talking to your loved one. That's kind of that AI, dealing with the AI. But as far as, especially with elder care, and I can tell you, you talk about the texts or the emails that you get or phone calls that you get. My mother is aging and with dementia and was taken advantage of. So this is very near and dear to my heart. But the tactics that are used are to frighten those people. And so, if you're of your right mind, one is always be suspicious. And, if somebody's asking you for something, step back and just think for a minute. Is this too good to be true? Does this make sense? Should this person be calling me? Should they be asking for my password? Your bank is not going to call you and ask for your password, for example, right? However, now going to like the scenario with my mother, how do you stop that from happening to your loved one or your aging parent? And the answer is you've got to pay attention. So going back to just the whole fraud awareness thing, it's a mindset shift of awareness and paying attention, and it can be difficult with aging parents having that conversation and kind of injecting yourself as a child into the challenges that you're seeing. But it's necessary to narrow down. For example, with my mother, it's a long story what happened, but the bottom line is she mailed $10,000 in cash. Fortunately, she got it back. She was one of an amazing story to get it back. She had a lucid moment and realized what she had done. But besides that, right after that happened, I sat down with her and explained that, we needed to reduce. If you think about financial fraud or that type of thing that can happen to a person, if you think about it like the doors and windows in your house, you want to lock the doors and windows. So you want to decrease the access points. So for your aging parent, for example, decrease the access points to their financial accounts, to their debit cards, credit cards, cash, anything of that nature. And whether that is taking those things away from them, which is an extreme thing to do, or having some kind of warning. For example, when your bank notifies you that your debit card has been used, put that kind of notification in place, even if it's now you as the child receives that type of notification, because the closer to the actual transaction, to the time that it occurs, that there can be an intervention, the more likely it is that the betrayal will be caught or stopped in its tracks. So, the bottom line for that is to be proactive and not to be reactive, somewhere on down the road after it's happened.
And so, what usually happens to these perpetrators? Do they end up dead? Do they end up in jail? Does karma, you think like, all these, like, I mean, obviously look at Bernie Madoff and, but what usually happens to these perpetrators?
Well, it's interesting and really across the board. So when we're talking about the perpetrators who are preying on your elderly parents, unfortunately, they're rarely caught. Okay, because wherever the money is going is a fake place, or someplace it's very difficult to track that money down. That's and then set that aside. Then if you talk about the corporate criminal, the white collar criminal, first of all, they never believe they're going to be caught. However, you see, like, you think of the story of Bernie Madoff and a Ponzi scheme like he was committing. It's like a game of musical chairs. It's going to come to an end. They get too greedy. It ultimately ends and blows up in their face. And that happens for most individuals. Unfortunately, the longer the fraud occurs, the greater the loss. But I have seen time and again, business owners who just want to fire the person because they don't want the negative publicity, or they want to go to the mat and prosecute. But when it's something is difficult to trace as cash, sometimes that's very difficult to prove. And then there becomes the challenge of getting law enforcement to take the case. And so, building the evidence that will put the person behind bars. So sometimes nothing happens. And sometimes they go to prison. I can tell you that unfortunately, white collar crime, the sentence often does not match, the volume or the value of the money that they've stolen.
Interesting. Yeah. Usually the laws of, man-made laws usually are, but again, there's a lot of spiritual laws, karma and etc. So,
yes. Yeah. I firmly believe that they will have to face their maker one day and it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting. It was really interesting conversation. And how can people find out more about you, your work, and reach out to you and learn more from you?
Yeah. So probably the easiest way would be on LinkedIn. And my handle is Kelly J. Todd, the letter J. Or my website is forensicstrategic.com.
Excellent. Yeah, it was really interesting and really enlightening and really fascinating discussion. And thanks so much for coming on.
Great. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.